All right, welcome back to Safe Bets. I'm Matt, and we're going to be going over the 2028 Republican presidential nominee. I'm thinking here uh, that there's no way that. I think the numbers are a little skewed in JD Vance's favor, and I don't think it's going to go that way. I think the people worth mentioning here right now, the Trumps, Rubio, Vance, DeSantis, Youngkin, maybe Vivek, definitely Cruz, and Greg Abbott. Okay, the Trumps. Here's why I don't think they're going to be any of them, by the way, are going to be the 2028 Republican candidate. The first term, Trump got elected saying the system was rigged, and he didn't do anything about it. His presidency his first term was just nothing. I don't think anything got done. Not a very memorable first term, other than the endless rain of propaganda against him and a system that said it wasn't going to work with him. Well, big surprise. Second term, Joe Biden graciously decided to step in Trump's place while he dealt with lawsuits. So I think that was nice of Joe Biden. But yeah, he wasn't there for a second term. The third term, and this is where Trump completely capitulated to the system. He said, you guys want to see corruption. I do corruption bigger than anybody else. I do it the biggest. I'm the most corrupt. And he did. Here's a comparison between Nancy Pelosi's net worth and how much Trump has made in the past 2 years of, his, of his most recent presidency. It's insane. He's made $2 billion compared to what? Like, I think I used a high end estimate of like 2.5 billion or 250 million for Pelosi's net worth. Like, it's almost incomparable. And I think like the highest net worth for any of our senators right now is like 600 million, I want to say. And Trump's made more than that as a president in a couple years. Uh, these should be absurd numbers to you and should stand out. And he did it through, scamming his own base with crypto scams. He has this weird Qatari connection through the Witkoffs and World Liberty Financial, where it just seemed like they're funneling him money. If that's a conspiracy that anybody wants to look into, I'm sure we can find out a lot about World Liberty Financial and the Witkoffs. But I didn't go down that rabbit hole. It kind of just stopped at, oh, okay, Qataris are giving these people money, these people are giving Trump's money, or associated with Trump. It kind of ends there. All right, the big one took Israel money, and now we're at war with Iran. Surprise. The border wall is pretty much nothing. It's it's a soda can at best. And ICE doesn't really do great numbers, and they're bad PR for moderates. So here's what I have: the Trumps have betrayed their base, accomplished nothing. They're unpopular with moderates, uh, and he became exactly what he said he was opposing, but on steroids. He was opposed to the rig system, and that's what he ran on in 2016. And all of a sudden, he's the rigger, and he's doing it worse than anybody ever has in history. And I think his name has become toxic to the public. And it shows he has like a 32% approval rating right now. Now, Vance, he has a problem of being Trump associated. That's number one. He's the VP to an unpopular president. He's also fat. He's probably gay, and he hates America and its people. And he wrote a book about it. He's a Peter Thiel puppet, a political chameleon who will change his position to whatever he needs it to be. I mean, he's one of these people who were anti-Trump beforehand. Now he's pro-Trump, and I'm sure if he has to run against Trump in anything he did, he's already laid the groundwork when he was saying he gave these generic responses about not really supporting what Trump's doing in the Middle East, but backing him as the vice president. Well, it's not my position to criticize what he to uh, tell him what to do. I could just offer my opinion on the situation, but ultimately he's the president. One of these non-responses. He's a fake veteran. He was a journalist in the military. He wasn't really a Marine like everybody else. He changed his name. He was something like John Hamill or something before that. He's changed his name multiple times. And really, he's just a little tech Manchurian candidate, and that's what you should see him as. He's what? The only jobs he's worked have been for Peter Thiel or a job that Peter Thiel got him at some sort of finance firm. I don't know. Everything about this guy is fake, and there's nothing really that presidential about him. And here's the biggest problem for J.D. Vance. This has probably been one of the most effective propaganda campaigns in my lifetime, run by Nick Fuentes. His problem is going to be the Groypers. And if they don't want him in office, he will not be in office. I think the conservative movement and the Republican Party are moving in that direction towards Nick's politics. And it's inevitable. It's something you can't stop because these people don't go out and label themselves Groypers. They aren't part of some party with their name written all over it. They're just people with a certain ideology that go in and possess this ideology, and you don't know it. and they're the people that are helping you run your campaigns. They're the people staffing the Republican Party. But really, we can get into the direction that conservatism's going later. But for youth conservatives, Nick's the voice, and he doesn't like this guy. He will not be the next president. And he may get the candidacy, but he definitely won't be the president, and it would be a terrible idea. Anyone advising it, the Republican Party would tell them not to run J.D. Vance because Nick will tell the Groypers not to vote for him. There will be an endless slew of Instagram reels, TikToks, and YouTube shorts about J.D. Vance and how awful he is. And he's going to influence what? So the youth vote's about 13%, and half of that, let's just say half are conservative. Half are probably going to see and be influenced by Nick. And then there's the other portion of people who may be moderate that are also going to see the propaganda, who are going to be swayed and influenced by Nick. And I think you're going to lose 10% of the vote as a rough estimate just because this guy is going to launch the anti-Vance propaganda campaign. Now, here's the VP problem. No VP of an unpopular president has ever been elected president. Recent failures, we have Kamala Harris and Al Gore. And you could argue that Al Gore was pretty close, but, he didn't win. So we have a 100% over the past 200 years failure rate. It's rare to see a sitting VP elected too. Martin Van Buren did it in 1836, and the next one to do it was George H.W. Bush in 1988. Both were coming off the backs of immensely popular presidents. I think Van Buren was Andrew Jackson, George H.W. Bush was Reagan. J.D. Vance is not coming off the back of an immensely popular president. J.D. Vance is coming off the back of Trump, whose approval rating was 32% when I started making this video and was trending downwards. So it could be even worse right now. And you have to think, for Gore, he had Clinton. And Clinton's approval rating, I don't think, was poor because of any of his policies or any of that. I think it was simply because of how he acted personally. Now, The next one we have is DeSantis. DeSantis is weak, kind of has an unpresidential appearance. Uh, he's completely bought out, and that kind of makes sense for you know where he the demographics of Florida, um, large Jewish population, and I think the whole topic of Israel is a radioactive topic, and it's going to be one of the most divisive issues in uh, the 2028 presidential race. And with him passing anti-Semitism laws, I think it's out of touch with his base, with just conservatives, but it's also going to be unpopular with the moderates, who are also more in line with sort of Muslim sympathies and sympathies for foreigners. I don't think DeSantis has a real chance at the candidacy either. Also interesting, I found this website, trackapac.com. They have a lot of Democratic candidates up there, and only one of the two Republicans was DeSantis. So, I mean, I feel like years ago, a website like this would be targeted and taken down. So, I think we're seeing a real shift in politics that Israel is becoming a large issue, and will play a prominent role in the decisions that voters make. The next one, Ted Cruz. A decade ago, he had everything going for him. He was the common sense conservative. He was kind of this endearing, chubby Texan with a Mexican sounding last name. There wasn't anything wrong with him, but there wasn't anything right about him either, I would say. There wasn't anything that made him special. He was just a human man being run as a candidate with an inoffensive last name. But post Trump, he's weak, no longer Texan. What is he, chubby, or is he just fat now? Corrupt and bought out of the two Republican candidates on trackapac.com. Well, Ted Cruz was the other one. And I don't think the Tucker Carlson interview did him any favors. I think it just exposed him for being, dogmatically pro-Israel, and I think that's going to be the nail in the coffin for Ted Cruz and any hopes he has of being anything other than a senator. Vivek, I don't even know why he was on this list. I mean, Indian, hates white Americans. I mean, what else is there to say? You just check his tweets. Um, if Israel is a radioactive topic right now, then India is a nuclear topic right now, because I think more people are impacted by immigrant workers than they are from, foreign wars for this other country. I mean, yeah, we could get into the exact numbers, and I'm sure someone wants to make an argument about this, but I think India is more of a pressing topic for people than Israel. And you have to think, if trashing the white working class and marrying an Indian is bad, then trashing the white working class and being Indian has got to be much worse. That's how I think about it for Vivek. I don't think there's any chance of him uh, getting the candidacy either. Then we have, you know, 5'1" Vivek versus the Chad Aryan Queen, 6'8" Ann Coulter. Now, Glenn Youngkin is white. He's got a blue blood look. You know, he's not unpopular, and he has no bad press, but he's sort of unknown. And you know how I know he's unknown? Because at this point, maybe some of you recognized it, but that's Brett Kavanaugh. And this is actually Glenn Youngkin. And I figured no one would know because no one really knows who Glenn Youngkin is. But here are some good things about him. He is a mechanical engineer. Uh, like I said, he kind of has this blue blood look. I couldn't get much about his father, but it sounds like he came from an upper middle class family. Maybe not, uh, you know, high pedigree, but it seems like upper middle at least. He's been okay on policy. Uh, I think he signed a bill for gay marriage with the Democrats, but he opposed transgenders. But I mean, who didn't? Opposed the mandates, both mask and vaccine. Those are a couple good things about him. Don't really know much about the Carlyle Group, but apparently he was the CEO of that, um, or co-CEO, and they're a $426 billion financial firm. Uh, I'm sure with any of these these alternative asset managers, it, it probably doesn't take long to find some degree of corruption. But if you were looking for a testing ground for whether or not he can manage uh, a state or a major institution, I mean, one, he's been the co-CEO of the Carlyle Group, and two, he was what is it, governor of Virginia. So he actually has probably the fairest shot uh, out of anybody I've talked about so far. I mean, he would be the most likely to win outside of one other guy. Not Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott, I only put him on here because why are people betting on him? This guy's in the wheelchair. I don't think he's winning. Professor Tex, that was funny to me. I don't know. Poor sense of humor, I guess, but I don't think Greg Abbott has any chance. I don't know why we're betting on Greg Abbott. Rubio. Now, between it's kind of between Youngkin and Rubio. Rubio is normal looking, high position in the current White House to leverage. I think it was Secretary of State. Mexican sounding last name. I think that goes good for him. He's ambiguously ethnic, but mostly white. He looks white, so people are going to vote for him like he's a white guy. But he's got that Rubio last name, so I think immigrants are going to associate with him, and he's going to leverage that as well. You know, he's a little short. I mean, he doesn't have that going for him. I think if they like presidential candidate. When you think president and leader, maybe you think tall. Um, but I can already foresee what's going to be debated about in the primaries. And what's going to come up is whether or not he did a good job with Ukraine or the Iran war, because he will have to take responsibility for it as the current Secretary of State. And he's going to, however it turns out, he's going to play it off as experience. Uh, and whoever is running against him is going to say, well, you weren't successful with these, or you could have, even if he is successful, they're going to say, well, you could have done it better. And you can almost hear what what they're going to talk about right now already. But I think Rubio is probably the most likely candidate. And I think the last name really helps him out to assuage uh, immigrant voters. That's probably what he has over Youngkin, who is, you know, extraordinarily white. Here's how I think you should vote. JD Vance is probably I don't want to say he's a definite no, because Little Tech is going to push him as much as they possibly can, because they know he's bought and paid for. His entire career is owed to them. He doesn't have anything outside of outside of, you know, like no one would have voted for Vance. He just has that he was Trump's vice president. That Trump picked him for vice president. Everybody voted for Trump. No one voted for Vance. He is nothing without Little Tech. Uh, Rubio, he's a good bet for yes. He's a good bet for yes, being the 2028 presidential candidate. I think he has real competition with Youngkin. I'd say that, but he's probably the best pick. Now, here's where we're going to go off the rails a little bit, because I said this is a video about the 2028 Republican candidate, but I have to give you safe bets. And I think there's a distribution of bets that you could use where you bet on JD Vance being the 2028 candidate, where you buy yes for JD Vance being the 2028 candidate, but because there's like a 0% chance of him winning the presidency if he is the candidate, we go back to the VP problem, you could buy no on him being the president. So you could buy yes on him being the candidate, but you could buy no on him being the president. Because, if he isn't the candidate, well, I mean, you lost that, but then you can make up for it by betting him not being the president, right? Then, you could make up your losses by betting more on that. But there's also the real possibility that he ends up the candidate and he loses, which means you win on both of them. And then there's the possibility, well, okay, what are the odds of him winning the candidacy and winning the presidency, which is extraordinarily unlikely. Like, you wouldn't expect that JD Vance, who has, I don't think, any potential of becoming, I don't know, there's nothing spectacular about him. And in no way does he exude presidential vibes for me. I don't know anybody that's excited for him, anybody that cares about him, anybody that sees him other than a fat meme. So it'd almost be guaranteed that the Democrats are winning if J.D. Vance is the candidate. The Democrats would have to run somebody. They'd have to run a joke candidate that like no one could get behind. So it's almost guaranteed that if J.D. Vance wins the candidacy, he will lose the presidency. So those are my thoughts on it, and I'm pretty sure there's a combination of votes. I did the math on it earlier. I don't know if it technically counts as arbitrage because they're two separate bets about different topics, but they are sort of correlated. I would offer a word of caution on doing the combination of those two bets because, arbitrage is frowned upon. But usually that means betting on the same bet on taking different odds on different things. But this thing almost encourages it because you can set buy ranges. Like you can just come in later after the odds have moved and do your own arbitrage because you bought other shares at certain prices. So I don't think I wouldn't be too concerned about the ethics of doing that. So you could. This isn't a safe bet recommendation. I'd say I'd go through and do the math on it yourself on the proportions that you should bet it at. But you could bet JD Vance says yes on the 2028 candidacy and no on the presidency, and that might be a route you go. But for a safer pick, you could probably. Actually, I don't know what's safer than guaranteed money. if there is a combination, you could bet on that. But Marco Rubio wouldn't be a bad pick for 2028 candidacy. If you want to see one of these for the Democrat candidates, I don't really know much about them. Neither do you. Neither does anybody. So I could look into it. All right. Peace out.